What if I told you this pain you carry in your joints, in your chest, in your sleep, isn't a failure of your body, but a message from something deeper? What if healing, real healing, doesn't begin with a pill or a plan? After 60, the world doesn't slow down for you, but your body does. It creaks, it hesitates, it whispers in the middle of the night, and most days you try to push through. Smile anyway, walk anyway, sleep anyway. But somewhere inside you wonder, why does it hurt so much now? Is it just age? Is it wear and tear? Or is there something sacred your body is trying to say, and you just haven't had the space to listen? Here's the quiet truth most people will never tell you. 85% of the illnesses we face after midlife come not from what's broken, but from what's buried. And the healing we seek, it doesn't arrive in a bottle, it awakens in stillness. For over 2,500 years, Buddhist teachings have whispered the same timeless message. The body heals, not when it is controlled or corrected, but when the mind finally becomes quiet. In that silence, something old begins to stir, something ancient, something real. This isn't about denying science. It's about remembering the other kind, the inner science of awareness, the gentle medicine of breath, the sacred power of simply being here. You've tried the routines, the diets, the doctor's words, but if you're honest, something inside you still whispers, there must be another way. And there is, especially now, in this stage of life, where every heartbeat feels more precious and every ache feels more personal. Today you'll hear 5 timeless Buddhist principles that show how healing doesn't begin when you do more. It begins when you remember who you truly are. It begins when you stop fixing and start listening. So take a breath. Set the rest of the world down. What you hear next might just change the way you heal and the way you grow old forever, because your body doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be heard. Why is it that your knees hurt more after a heated conversation? Why do your shoulders tighten before a visit from someone who never quite saw you? Why do your hands tremble? Not from age, but from carrying emotions you never spoke aloud. You've probably said it to yourself 100 times. This body is wearing down. It's just part of getting old. But what if that's only half the story? What if your body isn't failing you? It's trying to talk to you. Most of us over 50 were raised to endure, not express. Raised to show strength, not softness. So when life pressed in, the grief, the guilt, the growing silence, we pushed forward, swallowed hard, smiled anyway. But the body never forgets. Every time you held back tears to keep peace in the house, every time you ignored the lump in your throat just to keep moving, every time you didn't say what needed to be said because it wasn't the right time, your body took note. And now, after all these years, it speaks in the only language it knows. A tight chest, a restless gut, an ache that doesn't respond to medicine. Not because it's broken, but because it hasn't been heard. In Zen Buddhism, we're not taught to rush in and fix. We're taught to pause and listen, because sometimes pain is not the enemy. It's the messenger. The Buddha once said, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And that wasn't just philosophy. It was anatomy of the soul. Pain, yes, the body will feel it. Age ensures that. But suffering, the deeper, longer kind. That comes when we resist pain, when we fear it, when we label it as wrong or unfair. And the body, over time, tightens beneath that resistance. Until one day, it screams for what you've been too busy or too afraid to feel. But here's the twist nobody told you. Healing doesn't begin when you do something. It begins when you stop doing and start feeling. When instead of asking, "How do I make this go away?" you begin to ask, "What are you trying to show me?" Let me tell you something I never used to share. For nearly 4 years, I lived with a strange pressure in my chest. It wasn't sharp. It wasn't alarming. Just constant. Like a stone I couldn't set down. Doctors ran their tests. "You're fine," they said. I changed my diet, tried the supplements, meditated, walked, slept early, but nothing changed. Until one evening, no phone, no distractions, just me. Stillness, breath, and somewhere in that quiet a memory surfaced. One I hadn't touched in decades. The day my father passed, the last time I saw his hands. The words I never got to say. I didn't cry like they do in the movies. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple, silent, real. And in that moment, my body didn't heal completely, but the tightness, it softened, like it finally felt acknowledged, like someone had finally listened. And that was enough to begin. So many of us treat our bodies like battlefields. We fight fatigue. We numb pain. We override tension. But the body isn't the enemy. It's on your side. Your fatigue is not laziness. It's a request. Your aches aren't weakness. They're wisdom. Your symptoms, their signal, each one whispering, "Please, listen." And science for once agrees with the Buddha. Research from Harvard shows up to 90% of all doctor visits are related to stress. Not because stress is imaginary, but because it reshapes your nervous system, dampens your immunity, inflames your gut, and exhausts your heart. But here's the miracle. Just 10 minutes of daily mindfulness can begin to reverse it. Not by adding anything, not by fixing, but by returning to your body with breath, with presence, with permission. Still, what they won't put on prescription bottles is this. Healing isn't only physical, it's deeply, deeply emotional. Grief, anger, shame. These aren't just psychological concepts. They're physiological memories, stored in your organ, etched in your posture, echoed in your heartbeat. What the mind hides, the body remembers. What you silence, your body eventually screams. That lingering tension in your back, it may not be from lifting heavy things. It may be the weight of unsaid words, of decades of not speaking your truth. You may be wondering, but I've ignored this for so many years. How could listening change anything now? And here's the most sacred truth I can offer you today. Your body has never stopped believing in you. Like an old friend who's waited quietly by the door, is still willing to whisper back the moment you say, "I'm here now. I'm ready." Yes, even at 60, even at 70, even with arthritis in your fingers and silver in your hair, the body still listens. The body still listens. The body still believes. The body still blooms. Because You were never meant to fight. You were meant to love it. Like the sacred, aging, still beautiful temple it has always been. Tonight, place your hand over your heart. Close your eyes and simply say, I hear you. Let whatever rises, rise. You don't need to fix it. You only need to listen. And that is how the healing begins. Have you ever noticed how quickly a child can bounce back from a fall, but how slowly an adult recovers from a disappointment? What if the pain of aging wasn't actually coming from the body, but from the stories we've silently attached to it? Here's an uncomfortable truth. It's not your wrinkles, your knees, or your memory that are aging the fastest. It's your belief system. In Buddhism, suffering is not caused by what happens to us. It is caused by our attachment to how we wish things would stay. Yet in modern life, we are conditioned to worship youth, to chase it, inject it, filter it, disguise it. But in Zen, impermanence isn't something to fear. It's something to bow to. Look at a tree in autumn. It doesn't grieve the falling leaves. It lets go beautifully. It trusts that what falls makes space for what's next. Aging, then, is not decay. It is a return to essence. It is the process of clarifying what matters. The real suffering begins not in the body, but in the mind. When we resist this truth, when we say to ourselves, I shouldn't feel this tired, or I used to be able to do this, or I look so old. These inner scripts don't just drain our joy, they affect our biology. Did you know that in a landmark Yale study, adults with positive views on aging lived, on average, 7.5 years longer? That's more than the combined effect of quitting smoking, regular exercise, and eating vegetables. So if you're taking vitamins each morning, but quietly telling yourself, I'm falling apart, your cells are still listening. And they are obeying. I once met a woman, 78 years old, who glowed with life. Not the kind of glow that came from running marathons or owning an organic farm, but the kind of energy that made you want to sit near her, just to soak in her peace. I asked her what her secret was. She smiled and said, I stopped believing I was old. Her body was aging. She had arthritis. She had lost her partner. Her hands shook when she poured tea, but she still whispered, thank you. Every time she woke up breathing, she wasn't in denial. She had something even more powerful, dignity. That quiet grace that comes not from being perfect, but from being present. Psychology now confirms what the Buddha knew all along, that as people age, what hurts most is not the body, but the feeling of being invisible, useless, or past their prime. When we lose our sense of meaning, the nervous system shrinks its responses. The body slows down not just from age, but from emotional withdrawal. And yet the body also remembers connection, even small forms of purpose, volunteering, mentoring, planting a garden, light up the same brain regions that reduce pain and improve longevity. And from the law of attraction perspective, what you expect, you invite. If your internal dialogue says, it's all downhill from here, then yes, it will be. But if your belief is, my best years are spiritually unfolding, you begin to attract the people, energy, and opportunities that match that vibration. Here's my opinion, and it may challenge what you believed. Your body is not betraying you. It is maturing you. It is not falling apart. It is peeling away what is no longer essential. Just like the lotus rises from the mud, this stage of life can be your awakening, not your ending. Think of aging like the ripening of fruit. When fruit is young, it is firm, glossy, and sometimes a little sour. But when it ripens, it softens, sweetens, deepens. It becomes nourishing. In the same way, your soul is ripening. You are becoming medicine, not just for yourself, but for others. That is, if you choose to see it that way. Of course, ripening doesn't mean we love every crack, creak, or chin hair that shows up uninvited. Let's be honest. Some mornings feel like a game of, what new sound will my body make today? But that's the beauty of it. When we stop resisting and start smiling, even the aging process becomes lighter. Most people will keep chasing youth like a ghost, spending their precious energy on mirrors and regrets. But you, yes, you're choosing to wake up instead. And that already makes you rare. That already makes you free. Ask yourself this now. What belief about aging have I inherited that no longer serves me? Write it down. Burn it. Burn it. Or better, replace it. Replace it with something like, every year I grow wiser, lighter, and more connected to what truly matters. In Buddhism, we speak often of the beginner's mind, a mind that sees each moment as fresh, even at 60, 70, or 80. You are not running out of time. You are running deeper into truth. But what happens when we've accepted the reality of aging and still carry emotions we've never had the space to express? That's where we go next. Your liver remembers your anger. Your gut stores your fear. And your chest, it holds your grief. But the real question is, what happens to a body that's never allowed to cry? Or worse, what happens to a body that's been trained over decades to smile through everything? Let's not sugarcoat it. In the Zen tradition, we don't bypass emotion in the name of peace. We sit with it. We bow to it. Because what you don't feel, you can't be free from. And what you avoid emotionally, your body will eventually carry physically. I often tell my students, your body is not just flesh and blood. It's your autobiography, a living scroll that stores every unspoken goodbye, every stifled scream, every swallowed "I'm not okay." Think about that. How many years have you been collecting what you were too busy or too scared to release? I once guided a woman in her 60s through her first silent meditation retreat. On the second day, during walking meditation, she broke down in tears. When I gently asked her what surfaced, she whispered, "I just realized I never got to grieve my mother. I was too busy taking care of everyone else." That moment changed her. Not because she cried, but because for the first time she allowed it. Buddhist teaching reminds us suffering is not the enemy. Suppression is. Like stagnant water in a still pond, what is unexpressed begins to rot. Emotion, when blocked, becomes inflammation. Thoughts turn into tension. Silence becomes sickness. Let's look at science for a moment. Not to overwhelm, but to affirm what ancient wisdom already knew. Epigenetic research shows that unresolved trauma can switch on or off certain genes, affecting not just you, but your children and grandchildren. In other words, what you don't release, they may inherit. Psychologists have long studied the mind-body connection, but recent studies confirm people who suppress emotions are more likely to suffer from chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases, and even heart conditions. On the other hand, practices like expressive writing, talk therapy, and somatic meditation don't just make you feel better. They actually reduce cortisol, balance your heart rhythms, and regulate immune function. You don't need to scream into a pillow every night, but you do need to give your emotions a seat at the table. Most people think strength means keeping it all together, but real strength, the kind that liberates, means allowing things to fall apart on purpose. Not dramatically, not for attention, but quietly, authentically, like a tree shedding its leaves in autumn, trusting that spring will return. Let me share something from my own life. There was a time I felt completely exhausted, not just physically, but spiritually. I was teaching, guiding, caring for others, but inside, I was numb. One evening, I sat down with no plan, no phone, no distractions. And then, the tears came. Not sadness, not despair, just release. Sacred release. The kind of tears that don't come from the eyes, but from the bones. I cried for 30 minutes. And afterward, I didn't feel broken. I felt real. I felt light. Like I had finally come back into my body after years of being somewhere else. Let's talk vibration. You cannot attract wholeness from a fragmented heart. You cannot manifest peace if grief is locked in your chest. Energy is honest. What you resist persists. But what you embrace transforms. When you choose to release, to soften, to feel, your vibration shifts. And the universe, like a mirror, reflects that shift back to you, in people, in peace, in possibilities. We've been lied to. We were taught that emotion is weakness, that vulnerability is dangerous. But the most powerful people I've ever met weren't the ones who held it all in. They were the ones who had the courage to feel deeply and survived. Because once you've made peace with your pain, nothing can be used against you. Now, I'm not saying you should cry over every burnt piece of toast. But let's be honest, we've all had days where it wasn't really about the toast, right? Here's the tragedy. Most people will carry these emotional weights until their final breath, never realizing they were optional. But you're different. You're still here, still reading, still listening. That's not a coincidence. That's an invitation. Imagine your body as a house, and every unspoken emotion is like a box shoved into the attic, forgotten but still leaking its energy. Eventually, the weight of what hasn't been said starts creaking through the floorboards, and one day you hear the house whisper, "Please, unpack me. Tonight, try this. Write a letter to your body. Ask it, what have you been holding for me? without thanks, without rest, without my attention. You might be surprised at what it says back. In Zen we say, when you sit in true stillness, your deepest truths begin to rise, not to punish you, but to purify you. This isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. Now that we've begun releasing what was buried, what happens when we learn to meet the present moment without fear, without resistance, without the past? That's where we're going next. What if the cure isn't in the next doctor's visit, or the next bottle of supplements, or even in tomorrow's sunrise, but in this very breath? What if all the energy you've spent chasing healing has been quietly distracting you from the only place it ever truly existed? Right here, right now? Let's pause for a second. In Zen Buddhism, we say the past is memory and the future is imagination. Only the present moment is real. But most of us, especially as we age, forget this. We live like the opposite is true. We spend hours rewatching old regrets, like a movie we've memorized but can't stop playing. We project forward into a future filled with worries, like, will my body hold up? Or will I still matter when I can no longer do what I used to? Meanwhile, the only moment that actually exists, this one, slips past unnoticed. Like a dear friend we keep promising to call, but never do. Here's a surprising truth. Suffering doesn't just come from pain. It comes from time travel, from mentally living in yesterday's sorrow or tomorrow's fear. And it's the body that pays the price. When the mind spins, the body tenses, the breath shortens, the heart races. The nervous system prepares for a battle that never comes. Zen offers a simple but radical idea. This moment is not a stepping stone. It is the destination. Peace doesn't come when everything is perfect. It comes when we stop waiting for things to be different and allow ourselves to fully arrive here. Science supports this. A study from Harvard found that people spend nearly 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're doing, and that this mind wandering is strongly correlated with unhappiness. But here's the miracle. Just 10 minutes of mindfulness a day, 10 minutes of actually being where you are, can lower blood pressure, reduce anxiety, and even increase gray matter in the parts of the brain linked to memory and self-awareness. You don't need to climb a mountain. You just need to return to this breath. Let me share something with you. A few years ago, I fell into a pattern I didn't even realize was hurting me. I was constantly planning, fixing, preparing. Every day felt like a strategy for my health, my future, my schedule. I told myself I was being responsible. But the truth is, I was escaping the present. One morning, without intention, I sat under a Bodhi tree I had planted years earlier. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't doing anything. I just listened to the rustling leaves, the breath of wind, the sound of my own inhale. And in that moment, something broke open. For the first time in weeks, my jaw was unclenched. My stomach wasn't tight. My mind was quiet. I hadn't changed my supplements. I hadn't restructured my routine. All I had done was arrive. Healing came, not from adding something, but from stopping everything long enough to notice what was already here. Psychologically, this makes perfect sense. When you are fully in the now, the mind no longer has the power to spiral into fear. Presence interrupts the loop. It resets the nervous system. It creates a safe place, not just for your thoughts, but for the younger, more tender version of you inside. that has been waiting decades to feel safe again. And from the law of attraction perspective, the universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your vibration. If you're always focused on what's wrong, what's missing, what's painful, you amplify that reality. But when you return to this moment with gratitude, with breath, with even a single whisper of peace, you begin to radiate the energy of trust. And trust is magnetic. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. That sounds beautiful, but I have bills, a bad knee, grandkids to watch. I don't have time to just sit and breathe all day. You're right. And you don't have to. Presence is not about pausing your life. It's about showing up for it fully. You can wash dishes with awareness. You can feel your feet in your shoes as you walk to the mailbox. You can breathe slowly, even while paying bills. You can look into your partner's or your child's eyes and actually see them, instead of rehearsing your next task. Presence isn't a technique, it's a return. Think of your mind like a snow globe. When it's shaken, everything blurs. Chaos, overwhelm, confusion. But when you stop shaking it, the flakes settle, and what's underneath becomes clear again. Stillness reveals what was always there. Of course, staying present doesn't mean becoming a monk. Some days, just brushing your teeth without checking your phone deserves applause. That is spiritual practice. Small wins. That's how peace builds momentum. Most people will spend the rest of their lives chasing the next solution, the next product, the next idea of healing. But you, yes, you are beginning to understand the secret, that this moment is already enough. This breath right now holds more healing than 100 plans. Because you don't need more time. You need more presence in the time you already have. The moments you are fully alive in, they stretch, they echo, they multiply, they change your chemistry, your memory, your legacy. So here's a practice. Try it tonight. Set a timer for 3 minutes, just 3. No music, no phones, no goals. Sit, breathe. With every inhale, say silently, "Now is safe." With every exhale, "Now is enough." Let that become your anchor. Let that become your medicine. Let that be the place you start again. In Buddhism, we don't chase the future. We bow to the now. Peace isn't something that arrives at your door like a package. Peace awakens when you do. So now that we've reclaimed the present, let's talk about something even more powerful than presence. Let's talk about meaning. Because your body doesn't just respond to breath, it responds to purpose. People don't just die from illness. They die from hopelessness, from feeling unnecessary, forgotten, unseen, and often from simply not remembering why they even want to wake up tomorrow. That's a hard truth, but it's one we need to say out loud, especially as we grow older. Because without purpose, even the healthiest body begins to fade. But with purpose, even a tired, aching body finds new strength. In Buddhism, there's a teaching called right livelihood. It's not just about your job. It's about the energy behind what you do. When your actions align with your heart, peace follows. And that peace, that quiet clarity, is deeply healing. But let's make something clear. Purpose doesn't mean launching a non-profit at 70. It doesn't mean writing a best-selling book or reinventing yourself from scratch. Purpose doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be big. It can be quiet, gentle, personal. Purpose can look like, I want to teach my granddaughter how to bake chocolate chip cookies. I want to tend to my small garden and talk to the flowers. I want to be the reason someone smiles today. The lotus, after all, doesn't bloom in manicured soil. It rises from the mud, from the dark. That's where strength is born. Not in perfection, but in presence. Let me tell you a story I'll never forget. I once met a monk, 92 years old, still rising every morning at 4 a.m. to teach meditation to younger students. His voice was soft. His walk was slow. But his presence, it lit up the entire room. I asked him, "Why you still wake up so early to teach?" He smiled, tapped his knee and said, "Because teaching is why my legs still work." He wasn't being poetic. He was telling the truth. His purpose wasn't just in his mind, it did itself in his cells. It was his rhythm, his breath, his vitality. Science confirms what he knew intuitively. A groundbreaking study by Dr. Patricia Boyle at the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center found that seniors with a strong sense of purpose were 2.4 times less likely to develop Alzheimer's. Another study in JAMA revealed that people with high life purpose had lower mortality rates and fewer chronic illnesses. In other words, your why is stronger than your what? And sometimes your reason to live is more powerful than any prescription. You may have been told that healing after 60 means slowing down, resting more, doing less. And sometimes, yes, that's true. But other times, healing means waking something up. Not your schedule, not your productivity, but your sense of being needed, being valuable, being connected. From a psychological point of view, it's clear. Pain without purpose feels unbearable. But pain with purpose, it becomes sacred. It becomes fuel. It gives your suffering a story. It turns your life from a prison into a path. I once worked with a retired nurse. She had spent her entire adult life caring for others. And then, one day, she stopped. Retirement. Silence. She told me, "I feel invisible now." She wasn't sick, but her voice was flat. Her shoulders slouched. Her eyes looked far away. A few weeks later, she began volunteering just one morning a week, reading children's stories at the local library. That's it. Just 1 hour once a week. But something changed. Her voice softened. Her posture lifted. Her words were slower, but brighter. She said to me, "It's like my body remembers what I'm here for." Purpose is not pressure. It's not one more task to squeeze into your already tired day. Purpose is the most magnetic force you can emit. When you are aligned with something that feels true, life begins to move with you. You attract people, energy, and circumstances that match your direction. This isn't superstition, it's vibration. And it begins the moment you choose to mean something to someone or to something. That someone might be a child, a neighbor, a stray dog, or even the morning light. That something might be a tree, a journal, or a small act of kindness you offer every day. Think of your purpose as the sun. There will be cloudy days. You will forget it's there. But when you turn toward it, even for a second, everything in your inner garden begins to grow, even slowly, even silently. The body responds to warmth, especially the warmth of meaning. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you have to become a guru at 70. Let's be honest. Some mornings, just finding your reading glasses feels like a full-time job. Some days, just taking a shower and drinking water is enough. And you know what? It is. Meaning doesn't have to be heavy. Even saying good morning to someone who feels alone. That can be sacred work. Even making someone laugh at the grocery store checkout. That can be a form of service. So the question isn't, how many years do I have left? The real question is, what will I bring to the years I have? Because if you're still breathing, you're not done. You're still becoming. And becoming, that is medicine. Most people never ask this question. They enter the later chapters of life waiting for something to fix them. But not you. If you're still here, still reading, still open, you're not waiting. You're remembering, and that alone makes you rare. That alone makes you powerful. Tonight, write down one reason you still want to wake up tomorrow. Even if it's small, even if it's I want to see the sky turn orange at dawn, let that be in the beginning. In Zen, we don't chase purpose like a prize. We discover it, moment by moment, in silence, in service, in the everyday joy of just being alive and still willing. You are not too old. You are not too late. Your why is still whispering. All it needs is your ear. You're not broken. You're remembering that the pain in your body isn't a punishment. It's a messenger. That aging isn't the end. It's a return. A return to what matters, to what lasts. You're remembering that emotion, when honored, doesn't shatter you, it frees you. That presence isn't a delay in life, it is the medicine. And that purpose, no matter how small, no matter how quiet, breathes new life into every cell of your being. What if healing was never about doing more, but about being more present? What if your body doesn't need another routine, another rule, or another restriction, but a new relationship with you? Because healing isn't about fixing what's wrong. It's about returning to wholeness, to peace, to the truth of who you already are, beneath the fear, beneath the fatigue, beneath the stories you've been told about getting old. As you go forward from this moment, stay curious. Pause often. Ask your body not just what it needs physically, but what it's been longing for spiritually. Let your breath remind you this moment is sacred. Let your choices quietly say, I am here, I am willing, I am listening. Because after everything, all the trying, all the pushing, all the striving, maybe what your body has needed most all along is just you. Here, now, soft, present, kind. If something inside you stirred as you listened, that wasn't an accident. It was your own inner wisdom answering back. You didn't come here to be fixed. You came here to remember. To remember that healing isn't something outside of you. It's something already living within you. Quiet, patient, waiting. So tonight, or whenever you're ready, place your hand over the part of your body that feels the most forgotten. Maybe it's your knees, your chest, your heart. Close your eyes and whisper, I see you now. I thank you. I'm here. This is not about perfection. It's not about never feeling tired or never aching again. It's about finally learning how to listen, and in that listening, how to love. Because no matter how old you are, no matter what you've been through, there is still something in you that wants to grow. Something sacred, something soft. And now, I'd love to hear from you. If you feel called, share this in the comments. What part of your body are you learning to love again? Maybe it's your hands, now softer, more wrinkled, but still capable of holding. Maybe it's your legs, no longer fast, but still faithful. Maybe it's your heart, weary, but still beating for something beautiful. You don't have to write a lot. Just a word, a whisper, a breath turned into language. Sometimes that's all it takes to start healing together. And if this message meant something to you, if it touched a place words don't often reach, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need it tonight. Because the path of healing isn't loud, it's quiet. And the most beautiful part, you don't walk it alone anymore. We'll meet again soon. In the silence, in the breath, in the gentle remembering that you were never